Most retirees believe they made the right choices while they were working. They saved consistently. They used retirement accounts. They followed the rules. They did what they were told was responsible. And yet years later, many of them feel stuck. They hesitate before spending. They worry about taxes more than they expected. They feel like their money controls them instead of the other way around. What most people don't realize is that this feeling often traces back to a decision they made decades earlier. A decision that seemed small at the time. A decision that felt technical. A decision they barely remember making. Roth or traditional. That single choice quietly shapes how flexible retirement feels, how stressful spending becomes, and how much control you really have later in life. And most people don't understand its impact until it's too late to change easily. Over 15 years of working with retirees, I've watched this pattern emerge repeatedly. Someone comes in feeling financially solid on paper. They have a healthy retirement account balance. They've saved diligently for decades. But when we start talking about their actual experience in retirement, something feels off. They're anxious before every withdrawal. They hesitate before making decisions. They constantly calculate and recalculate whether spending is safe. And when we dig deeper, the source of that anxiety is almost always the same thing: tax uncertainty. They don't know how much of their money they'll actually keep. They don't know how withdrawals will interact with their other income. They don't know what consequences their decisions will trigger. That uncertainty creates constant stress, even when the money itself is sufficient. For years, the Roth versus traditional 401k decision has been treated like a minor detail. Something you check once. Something you set and forget. Something that only matters if you're highly paid or deeply interested in taxes. But in reality, this decision doesn't just affect numbers on a statement. It affects how retirement feels. Because retirement isn't only about how much money you have, it's about how confidently you can use it. With a traditional 401k, the benefit feels immediate. You contribute before taxes. Your taxable income goes down. Your paycheck feels a little bigger. During working years, that feels helpful. But what many people don't fully think through is what happens later. When you retire, that money doesn't simply become available. Every dollar you take out is treated as income. It gets taxed. It gets counted. It interacts with everything else. Social Security, Medicare premiums, tax brackets. Your retirement income becomes something you have to manage carefully. Not because you're irresponsible, but because taxes make income unpredictable. I've sat with retirees who need to withdraw $50,000 to cover annual expenses. Simple enough, right? But then we look at the tax consequences. That $50,000 withdrawal pushes them into a higher tax bracket. It makes more of their Social Security taxable. It increases their Medicare Part B premiums. What they thought would be a straightforward $50,000 withdrawal ends up costing them an extra $8,000 to $10,000 in taxes and premium increases. Suddenly, they need to withdraw $60,000 to net the $50,000 they actually need. That extra $10,000 comes out of their portfolio. Forever. And it happens year after year. That's not a failure of planning. That's the structural reality of traditional retirement accounts. With a Roth account, the experience is different. You pay taxes up front. The money goes in after tax. And from that point forward, the growth belongs to you. When you withdraw it later, there's no tax calculation waiting on the other side. No wondering how much will be withheld. No worrying about pushing income into a higher bracket. No hesitation before using your own savings. That difference may not feel dramatic early on, but over time, it becomes meaningful. Because in retirement, uncertainty is more stressful than cost. Many retirees don't feel anxious because they lack money. They feel anxious because they don't know how much of their money they can safely spend. When most of your income is taxable, every decision feels heavier. A large purchase feels risky. A one-time expense feels permanent. A market downturn feels personal, not because the plan is failing, but because taxes add friction to every choice. I've worked with people who have over $1 million saved entirely in traditional IRAs. On paper, they're wealthy, but in practice, they feel constrained. Every time they consider a major expense, replacing a car, helping a family member, taking a meaningful trip, they have to calculate the tax impact first. If I take out $30,000 for this, how much will that cost me in taxes? Will it affect my Medicare premiums next year? Will it make more of my Social Security taxable? Those calculations are exhausting, and they happen before every decision. That's not freedom. That's constant mental burden. People often assume their tax rate in retirement will be lower. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. Required withdrawals can increase income unexpectedly. Social Security benefits can become taxable. Medicare premiums can rise as income rises. Tax rules can change over time. These things rarely happen all at once. They happen gradually. And because they happen gradually, many people don't notice the loss of flexibility until it's already gone. This is why two retirees with similar savings can feel very different. One feels calm and confident, the other feels cautious and constrained. Often, the difference is not how much they saved. It's how their money is structured. Roth money creates psychological freedom, not because it avoids taxes entirely, but because it removes uncertainty. When you know a withdrawal won't trigger a tax consequence, spending feels simpler. You stop calculating, you stop second-guessing, you stop worrying about thresholds and timing. That confidence matters more later in retirement than most people expect. I've seen the difference this makes firsthand. Two couples, both with similar total savings. Both retired at roughly the same age. The first couple has everything in traditional accounts. The second couple has about 40% of their savings in Roth accounts. The first couple spends months debating whether they can afford a $25,000 expense. They run scenarios. They worry about the tax impact. They ultimately decide against it, even though the money is there. The second couple faces the same decision. They withdraw the money from their Roth account. No tax consequence, no cascade of complications. They move forward confidently. Same financial capacity, completely different experience. Now, this doesn't mean traditional accounts are a mistake. They are powerful tools. They allow people to save more early. They provide immediate tax relief. They help balances grow efficiently. For many people, they are essential. The real mistake is letting this decision happen automatically, or treating it as an all-or-nothing choice. The most resilient retirement plans usually include a mix, some taxable income, some tax-deferred income, some tax-free income. That mix creates options. Options reduce stress, and stress reduction is one of the most valuable outcomes in retirement. Another overlooked advantage of Roth accounts is timing control. Roth money gives you flexibility over when income shows up. That flexibility matters. It allows you to manage taxes strategically. It allows you to smooth income across years. It allows you to handle unexpected expenses without panic. Traditional accounts don't offer the same control. They eventually force income, whether you need it or not. Required minimum distributions start at age 73. And once they start, they continue every year for the rest of your life. Those forced withdrawals often arrive at exactly the wrong time, when you don't need the money, when your other income is already high, when taking more creates tax problems, but you have no choice. The government requires it. And forced income often shows up at the exact moment flexibility matters most. This is why the Roth versus traditional decision matters more than people think. It's not about chasing the perfect tax outcome. It's about designing a retirement that feels manageable, a retirement where decisions feel intentional, not reactive. Most people don't regret saving. They regret not understanding the long-term consequences of how they saved. Those regrets don't appear early. They appear later when choices feel limited, when spending feels stressful, when flexibility quietly disappears. This decision doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be thoughtful. It needs to consider not just today's tax rate, but tomorrow's lifestyle. Not just accumulation, but distribution. Not just numbers, but experience. In future videos, we'll break down how retirees think about tax diversification, how different income sources interact, and how flexibility can be rebuilt even later in retirement. No hype, no urgency, just clarity. Because retirement success isn't about having the biggest balance. It's about having control over how you use it.